If you ever tried to lose belly fat, you know exactly how frustrating it can be. You're putting in the work trying to be as healthy as possible, maybe even losing fat in areas like your face, your shoulders, your arms, but that stubborn, squishy layer of fat around your waist just doesn't want to come off. And as months go by, the frustration builds and most people just give up because they're not seeing the changes they want. Or they try to cut calories deeper and do extra cardio and end up with an unsustainable plan and then fall off. And if you're about to repeat those mistakes, I urge you to wait a minute and listen to this video before you waste another 6 months, because this will be the most important advice you'll hear on losing your belly fat. I'm gonna go over the real reasons why belly fat is so stubborn, how people make losing belly fat harder than it has to be, and how to do this the right way. And this isn't just theory. This is experience from 10 years of coaching hundreds of people who struggle with this exact problem. It's the truth you need to hear, because 90% of people trying to lose fat end up regaining all of it. So at the end of this video, I'm also going to tell you what the 10% who stay lean long term are doing differently. So let's dive into part 1 and why belly fat is so stubborn. In your stomach region, there are 2 types of fat that cause your belly to expand. First, there's visceral fat, which wraps around your organs and is internal. You can't grab it, but you can see your waist increase as it's pushed from inside. And then there's subcutaneous fat, which sits under your skin. It's that soft layer of tissue that you can pinch and grab with your hand. And these 2 types of fat have very different effects. Visceral fat secretes pro-inflammatory cytokines, causing chronic systemic inflammation, and research shows that this can cause heart disease, cancer, stroke, and other chronic health conditions. It's one of the drivers of metabolic disease and type 2 diabetes. And you don't have to be very overweight to carry a lot of visceral fat. Even skinny fat individuals can store a significant amount internally. I've seen many client DEXA scans of guys who weren't that heavy and they had quite a bit of visceral fat. On the other hand, subcutaneous fat is our main energy storage. We have subcutaneous fat all over our bodies. It's not just the belly. Although for men, that's where we tend to accumulate a lot of it as weight goes up. And not all subcutaneous fat is the same. Certain areas are much more stubborn. Now, these 2 types of fat also respond differently to diet and exercise. The good news is, visceral fat, the very dangerous one, actually isn't all that stubborn. It's much more metabolically active, receives a lot of blood flow, and it has a higher rate of fat breakdown compared to subcutaneous fat. It's one of the first to get burnt off when you create a calorie deficit and start exercising. Even exercise alone without losing weight can reduce visceral fat. So if your belly still feels as squishy and thick after 30 days of diet and exercise, keep in mind that you're cleaning fat inside around your organs. Even if you can't see it, you're becoming a lot healthier, and that will help you get rid of the rest of the fat you have. Now, subcutaneous fat, specifically in the belly region, doesn't seem to respond as quickly to diet and exercise. The leading theory is that belly fat has more alpha-2 receptors, which when activated, reduce fat breakdown and make that fat harder to mobilize, unlike areas like your arms, which have more beta receptors and release stored fat easier. It isn't always the case that belly fat comes off last, but it is true for most guys. Also, genetics play a key role where you store more fat and where you lose fat from. For example, I noticed with some clients, they see visible abs at higher body fat percentages while they carry more fat in their legs and glutes, while others store more fat in their chest, their belly, or love handles. Now, there is some new interesting research on spot reducing fat, but it is very early to tell how much difference this can make. The reality is, we have decades of studies showing that we need to keep losing fat from our entire body, and eventually the belly will also go away. The analogy I like to use for this is that losing belly fat is like drying out a puddle. The edges go first, and the middle is the last to dry out. Your belly is that middle. So if you've been working hard and you feel like it's not going as fast, you need to hit that subscribe button and understand it will take time, because physically mobilizing that fat is slower and more difficult, not just for you, but for all of us. Now, the last reason why belly fat often feels so stubborn is because most people underestimate how much fat they actually need to lose before they tap into belly fat. The average guy in the gym thinks he's 15-20 pounds away from visible abs. But even if you have just 20 pounds of belly fat to lose, you might need to first lose 20 pounds from the rest of your body before you get to that part. That's a total of 40 pounds to lose, and that's a good 6 months of work if you're doing it right. A lot of my clients are often surprised by how much weight they had to lose to get visible abs as we kept peeling off the layers. That's despite the fact they're building more muscle. And that's why the process often feels very slow, because the goal is way farther than you thought. And this brings me to part 2, in how to effectively lose belly fat. Here's the fundamental truth you need to hear. This is going to suck, and you'll have to convince yourself to commit to the process of losing belly fat despite the fact that it sucks. Tell yourself whatever you need to, that grilled chicken tastes better than pizza, that cardio is more fun than watching Netflix, that you're full when deep down you know you could have that extra slice and eat the whole thing. You can try to hack around it by shifting your macros, trying different recipes, or eating stuff like low-calorie ice cream, but we all know the truth. Restriction and sacrifice are necessary, and if you're one of the unlucky ones with below average genetics, well, it's gonna be even harder. And I can sit here and tell you that it's all worth it going through the process of getting leaner and healthier as it was for me, but none of that matters unless you decide it's all worth it for you. Because the bottom line is, if you're not 100% committed to this goal and willing to make the sacrifices, you'll always find ways to sabotage yourself. You'll be inconsistent and you'll eventually quit. And until that mentality changes, you won't get results no matter what advice I give you. So the first thing you need to do is get your head right. That's the foundation upon which everything else rests. Even a perfect program doesn't matter if you don't follow it. And there is no shortcut, because we know this is going to take a while. You need a plan that you can do consistently for a long time. And here are the fundamentals your routine has to lose fat effectively to make sure your hard work is going in the right direction. The first and most important thing is to create the right calorie deficit. If you cut calories too low, you might lose weight faster initially, but you'll only be able to keep it up 4 to 5 weeks, and that won't be enough. I like to call this the sustainability threshold. For myself and the guys I'm coaching, I found that there's a sweet spot with reducing calories. If you set your intake to 200-300 calories more, results are too slow and hard to measure, but if you set your intake to 100-200 calories less, suddenly the diet feels completely unsustainable. For me, that sustainability threshold is about 1900 to 2000 calories. If I go down to 1700-1800, it's pure misery. I'm always hungry, I'm food obsessed, and I can only do it for about 2 to 3 weeks. And your numbers might be different. I recommend initially setting your calories to your goal body weight in pounds times 12 and then adjusting from there. You should be losing about 1 to 2 pounds per week, and it shouldn't feel extremely difficult at the start. Now on top of that, you need to make sure you're doing everything you can to retain muscle. If you're not doing it already, get about 1 gram per pound of your goal weight in protein. And whatever you're doing for exercise, you need to prioritize lifting weights. Don't make the mistake of just doing cardio. You'll end up skinny fat, slow down your metabolism, and regain the fat. I suggest lifting 3 to 4 times per week using a program that focuses on compound lifts, tracking your workouts, and learning about progressive overload. Outside of the gym, I recommend getting 8 to 12,000 steps per day, depending on how much time you have available. This will keep your metabolism running, improve your digestion, lower stress, and speed up the whole process. And lastly, make sure you're sleeping at least 7 hours. Lack of sleep will increase your hunger levels, will reduce how much fat you're losing, and accelerate the muscle loss. Actually, it's one of the reasons why so many people gain so much belly fat to begin with. And you probably heard all of this before, and for a good reason, because it all works. People don't just fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they stop doing it when the scale stalls for a while, when life gets busy or motivation fades. So if you came here looking for a shortcut, well, this is it. Do the boring fundamental stuff even when you no longer want to. And not just for a few weeks, but for however long it takes. And that's where most people fail. And this brings us to part 3, the one no one talks about. How do you actually keep the fat off for good? Because most people had some experience dropping 10 to 20 pounds, but the issue is 90% of the time they end up regaining all of it. No one ever prepares for what comes after the diet. The habits they implemented for losing fat were temporary. The daily structure was temporary. The mindset was tied to a short-term goal. It wasn't a lifestyle, it was a project. So when it ended, so did the progress and the results. And the 10% of those who keep the fat off long-term think differently. They know there is no going back ever again. You can't go back to eating how you used to. You can't go back to skipping workouts, neglecting your sleep and doing whatever. You can't live the same lifestyle that got you your weight in the first place and expect to stay lean. You have to live a different life and you have to move on. For the 10% of those who are successful long term, the habits that got them lean in the first place became a part of who they are. Eating healthy isn't a diet, it's how they eat. Lifting isn't just a program, it's a part of their week. Walking isn't just a step goal, it's how they move and how they organize their day. It's being intentional and keeping a healthy routine to take care of themselves even when they're not dieting. Becoming the kind of person who can't imagine themselves being overweight and out of shape ever again, and building a new lifestyle that doesn't let the belly fat come back. That's what it really takes. And if you'd like to work with me on your journey to building that lifestyle and getting lean, details for coaching are in the description below, so check those out. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.